Hi guys, how you doing? This is D Durrell with D Durrell Life Solutions. Today, I am happy to definitely converse with each and every one of you once again on today. We're going to go right into the topic today. I'm going to focus on black men who have addictions to video games. So we're going to talk about the phenomenon of black men who are highly addictive to video games. We're going to talk about the behaviors that contribute to this, and we're going to talk about ways in which we can monitor this and the phenomenon of pretty much seeing a lot of black men misuse their extended free time and focusing on something that I think is non-productive. Now, can video games be used in a way for relaxation? Can they be used in a way that can be entertaining? However, there are a percentage of black men that actually play video games more than kids do. And I think as adults, being that you're responsible for yourself, children, and others, we definitely have to look at it in the black community how there's grown 30, 40, 50-year-old men who enjoy video games more than children. Not that there's anything wrong with using video games as a hobby, but when it occupies or monopolizes a great deal of your time throughout the day, then there seems to be a problem because in the framework of being an adult, you should not have that amount of time to just BS around just for the fun of it. Children do, but not necessarily adults. So what I'm going to do, guys, is give somewhat of a medical, clinical perspective. And then I'm going to summarize a bit as far as the behavior of black men. These are men with kids, with jobs that seem to put so much time into buying games, investing in games, new gaming systems, and etc. Okay? So I decided to, in some way, summarize and synthesize this particular article. It's called "Is Video Game Addiction Real?" And obviously, the American Psychological Association has added it as a particular illness itself. However, the DSM-4 is doing further study, and they feel that there needs to be more done as it relates to video gaming disorder being a bona fide DSM diagnosis that may need to be treated with psychotherapy and possibly medication. Okay? So it does highlight, and I want to say this, it does highlight in this particular article that the term the World Health Organization added gaming disorder to the 2018 version of the medical reference book. Okay. So it is somewhat seen as an illness in an infancy stage, but there still needs to be further research that can give more analysis on how this affects the mindset of human beings, particularly men, as I'm going to talk about. As you know, there are people who love the game. There's a gaming culture. There's a gaming culture on social media, particularly YouTube. There's all types of platforms. There's all types of broadcasting platforms that you can utilize, such as Twitch, XSplit, that pretty much reinforce the usage of gaming. Now, they're proposing right now, if you're speaking of in the DSM-4, that there are about 9 different characteristics of what they think can contribute to gaming disorder. Although, again, it's not a bona fide disorder yet. They're doing further study. And what they're characterizing is that you need to have at least 5 or more of these symptoms in a year span in which there are problems for the following things. And I'm going to list those things. Thinking about gaming all the time or a lot. Basically, is monopolizing your mind. Recurrent thoughts about playing video games. Second thing, feeling bad when you can't play. Meaning that it has an adverse effect on you. as far as your mood, as far as how you're feeling inside, thinking. Your perception is negative. Number 3, needing to spend more and more time playing to feel good. Meaning that the more you play, the better you feel. Meaning that you are, in some sense, measuring your happiness on the amount of hours that you spend playing video games. You rely on video games for pleasure. You allow video games, and you pretty much have allowed video games to influence how positive you are. And you quantify it based on how many hours that you can invest in a day. Number 4 is not being able to quit or even play less, meaning that you have a difficulty quitting a game at your will or taking days off. It causes agitation if you're not playing. You become cranky, you become irritable. And some of these things go hand in hand with as far as you not being able to play, can also intensify the fact that you're thinking about gaming all the time. The 5th thing, not wanting to do other things that you used to like to do. Meaning that if you used to like to play, if you wanted to play sports, you're no longer playing sports. You're no longer taking your girlfriend on dates. You're no longer spending time with children like you used to. You're not focusing on school. Pretty much you have allowed the gaming to be the focal point of your life, and it takes away from your investment in other important aspects of your life. Number 6, having problems at work, school, home because of your gaming. And I kind of alluded to that earlier. So notice some of these features go hand in hand with one another. You're not working because you're late for work because you're gaming. You're not doing your homework in school because you're gaming. At home, you're not taking care of chores or other basic duties that you are supposed to be doing, other responsibilities because you want to game. It becomes a problem in your functionality with other important aspects of your life. Number 7, playing despite these problems, meaning that you know you have to study for tests, but you still want to play games anyway, regardless of the fact. You know you have paperwork that needs to be done. You know you have to get up early in the morning for 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, but you still want to play till 4 o'clock in the morning. Number 7. Number 6. Number 7, playing despite these problems. Just repeated that. Number 8, lying to people close to you about how much time you spend playing. You're so embarrassed. You're so embarrassed and uncomfortable with the fact that you spend so much time, you actually lie about, hey, I play video games 10 hours a day, because you know how other people would probably react to it. And it could be somewhat seen as being shameful. So you lie about it. Oh, I only played a couple hours last weekend, when you actually played probably 20 hours, 10 hours Saturday and Sunday playing video games. It also can disrupt relationships. You're spending more time with the video games instead of spending quality time with your girlfriend or boyfriend. And lastly, using video games to ease bad moods and feelings. And I want to focus on this a little bit, because in many situations that I have known for people that play video games, when you tie video games, because they talked about earlier about pleasure, you're using video games as a way of feeling good, but also using it to ease your bad mood and feelings. Now, I think there's a fine line with this, because video games can be therapeutic, but not to the point where you are relying on it to adjust your mood or your feelings. Then that's when it becomes harmful. When you're not using other coping mechanisms that can allow you to cope with your day-to-day issues. Now, how does this relate to black men? Well, it relates to black men because I think the complaints of many women is that many black men that play video games do all 9 of these symptoms. Classic cases. Thinking about it all the time, feeling bad if you can't play. You need to spend more time in order to feel good about yourself that day, have your temperament better. You don't know when to stop, don't know when to quit. You're not trying to work or find it. There are literally guys who are unemployed, black men that are unemployed, don't work, but they play video games all day while their wife or girlfriend is out making money and working. There are black men who refuse to find jobs and educate themselves and get training because they're so focused in on how many touchdowns they can make on Madden 21. And also, they're so apathetic of the fact that their situation is so bad personally that they'll continue to do it regardless of the outcomes and the consequences of not trying to develop themselves and do better. This, to me, is very prevalent in the black community, particularly guys that have never had a traditional job. And also, this didn't add the fact that a lot of people who game also gamble. They gamble playing games. I've known this for a fact where people would gamble and play $10, $20 games against each other. Gambling is associated with gaming. And I think that APA and American Psychological Association and the American Medical Association need to do further research on gaming and gambling because people gamble playing games, video games. Black men love to gamble. I know for a fact I've even participated as a younger adult gambling, playing NCAA football, playing Madden football, playing other different games. Mortal Kombat, who win and lose. There were people betting on these activities. I myself spent a lot of time playing video games in my young adulthood, but I never allowed the video games to monopolize my day. I would play games for certain hours of time and I would stop, particularly if I knew I had things I had to do. I usually played games to depress from things. I mean, not to depress, but to release from just stress for a couple hours or two. And I'm gonna be honest with you. The latest I would play video games would probably be maybe 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. I never stayed up late playing video games till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I knew when it was time to let it go. Now, have I played video games for over 8 hours in a day? Yes, I have done that, but I took breaks in between. I may have taken a break where I'm playing a season, whether basketball or football. I may take a 30 to 45-minute break in between seasons if I was playing a whole season. If I finish the season or finish the game, take a break, eat, or do other things, and then I go back to playing. But I never would only stop playing video games just to use the restroom or, and so on. There are people I know that I've known would sit and play video games all day and would not leave the couch unless they had to use the restroom or get something to drink. Also, in my absence of not playing, I never allowed myself to be somewhat obsessed with getting back to playing the game. There are a lot of black men who invest a lot of their quality time, a lot of their discretionary time, not doing other important aspects of their life instead of playing video games. Especially those that have children, especially those black men who are underemployed, but you're playing 8 hours of video games instead of getting your resume together, instead of doing some type of training or getting a certification, something productive. But also, I have to look at the people who enable these guys, the women that enable these men to sit there and play these video games for such long when there's other tasks and other things that need to be done. And that's how it relates to me in regards to a lot of unemployed black men who have a tendency to play video games at exorbitant amounts of time when actually they cannot afford to do so. So I just wanted to make a comment on this today. This is D. Durrell with D. Durrell Life Solutions.